charmed the world, the hero who never gave up. The clown who became one of the most beloved characters in animated history. And now, Felix is a major motion picture. The Cat is back. Felix the Cat. The movie. With Poindexter, the Professor, and a galaxy of new friends on a journey to majestic skies. Mystical lands. And magical scenes. Felix is ready with his bag of tricks.
To the land of Zill.
For the adventure of his life. All 9 of them. Felix the Cat. The movie. A landmark in cinema enchantment.
Honestly, we have a lot to talk about with the Felix the Cat movie, but we only have a little bit of time to work with here. But, what the heck was that? I mean, wow, that was, that trailer isn't even half of what this movie is, and the movie is crazy enough on its own. It's weird. You could definitely tell that there's effort being put into some of the animation in this, but man, this movie is all over the place. I remember watching this as a kid on videotape. We used to rent it from the farmer that we used to have around here, and I mean, at the time I liked it, but I was a kid. I was a little kid. I mean, I would watch anything back then, pretty much, and it would always be on the Disney Channel too. And years later, when I finally rewatched it again, it's just like, slowly but surely, you start realizing that this movie has no point whatsoever, and it really has nothing to do with Felix the Cat's. The story itself has nothing really to do with Felix the Cat himself. It's just like they just create this random assortment of different things throughout the movie. These different stories that don't make a lot of sense. These different universes that don't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, there's characters in here who look like something out of an anime, but then there are characters who look like swamp creatures you would see on a Saturday morning cartoon by Hanna-Barbera in the 1980s. And then you'd have scenes with Felix the Cat and the Professor and his assistant Poindexter from the TV series. And it's just like, what's going on here? What is going on in this movie? Animation will just sometimes do things for no reason whatsoever. There will be things where like I said, there'll be elements where a character will be talking and then nothing will be going on in the scene, and then you'll hear somebody still talking with the music all over the place. It's a complete mess of a movie when you watch it again through clearer eyes nowadays. It's just like, what were they thinking when they made this movie? Was this a movie where they were about to lose the rights to the character and they wanted to make more stuff with him, and it's just like, well, we got to make something here. We can't make a competent movie, so we'll just throw whatever garbage we can and then put this out there and say, hey, it's Felix the Cat the movie. We still get to keep the rights. And it's just like, man, it's just like, I can't believe that the people who made this character allowed this project to come out the way it did. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, you know what, we don't want to be in Roger Rabbit, because Felix the Cat would have probably worked in Roger Rabbit, but we don't want to do Roger Rabbit. We're going to put the money into our own movie. And it's just like, it's his loss, even though he does show up in the tunnel at the beginning of Toontown, but that's it. I mean, you don't see him in that movie, but I don't know if that was the case or not, but I would be mad. I would be mad if someone said we'd had a chance to get Roger be in a movie with Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, and all those characters, and said, no, we're just going to make our own movie. It's going to be whatever. It's just going to be stuff thrown at the wall. Anything that will stick. Even if it doesn't, we'll just keep trying. And it's just like, yeah, it's just like, it's a mess of a movie. And even the studio knew it was a mess. They picked it up in '87. It actually premiered in theater in Los Angeles in 1989, early January '89. It was supposed to come out at Thanksgiving '88, pushed to '90. Then New World shelved it altogether because of financial issues. And then it finally makes it to video in '91. Disney actually had to pick it up on videotape, and Like I said, it was a staple of Disney Channel programming throughout the 90s, early 90s at least. And, I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess of a movie all around. And like I said, there's really... You could definitely tell that there was some potential in the animation. Sometimes the animation sometimes doesn't look all that bad, but you get this nice look. But it's the styles they choose. There's so many different styles in here that they don't mesh together whatsoever. Right? And it just completely falls apart at the seams almost immediately. And it's a disaster. It's a disaster of a movie. It's just like, as much as I hate the Tom and Jerry movie, the Tom and Jerry movie was at least tried, even though it failed miserably. We'll get to that one when we get to that one in 93. But it didn't fail as miserably as this. This was a bad decision by these people. But and sadly, Felix the Cat hasn't had that much of a comeback ever since then. I mean, he was a staple for a long time in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. But he's had a couple TV shows since this movie came out, which had the voice of Cow and Chicken and Buster from Tiny Toons. Charlie Adler doing the voice at one point on CBS in the 90s, which I've only seen little bits and pieces of it, but it's at least a lot better than this. But they really haven't done anything with him ever since then, and it's kind of a shame. Like, this character is one of those long-time characters, like Woody Woodpecker. Like, if you get it in the right hands, somebody could make a good movie or a TV series with this character, and nobody's really doing anything with him, probably because the movie ended up being as bad as it was. And I don't think I even need to say any more about this movie. It's a mess of a film. If you remember watching it when you were little, just like me, yeah, you probably know that it's really bad. So, anyway, that's Felix the Cat, the movie. So let's go ahead and move on to the actual movie that came out this weekend. Surprisingly better than Felix the Cat, even though it's not really that great. It's Slumber Party Massacre Part 3.
Summertime. And the only thing the girls of Malibu Beach need is good music, good friends, and guys.
So, what's it worth to you?
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, a guy like that, this is the kind of guy we need at the party tonight.
They just invited the wrong guy. It began the most terrifying horror series of the decade. Now, the Driller Killer's back. Slumber Party Massacre, Part 3.
So here's a fun fact about this series. The first movie was actually written and directed by Amy Holden Jones. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you right away, you've definitely seen her work before. If you've watched Fox recently, you've seen her work on The Resident. You've also seen her writing skills on Beethoven, the first one in the Decent Proposal show. So she actually has a legitimate resume to her name, and got her start with Roger Corman with the first Slumber Party Massacre. Now, I say this because she has nothing to do with this movie, and this trailer makes this movie look pretty bad. It looks like pure garbage, and even though it has developed a cult following like the other two movies, it's considered by many as the worst of the trilogy. It's kind of like the Sleepaway Camp movies. They're movies that are terrible, but they keep making them regardless of how bad they are, because there will always be a following for bad movies like this. And Roger Corman movies can be fun, but judging by this, there's really nothing here that I would think that people would find interesting or fun. It's pretty much kind of like, it's just feels like a generic slasher film. It doesn't really feel like a movie that really took itself that seriously. They just want to make a quick buck right away. They know this isn't going to do well at the box office, but it's going to kill on video and midnight media and mom and pop video stores back then, and it did exactly what it needed to do. Which, even though it had a budget of only $350,000 and made back $1 million, so some worked in their favor, I guess. So, but I've never seen these movies, so I can't really comment on them. So, anyway, Slumber Party Massacre 3, it happened. It's Roger Corman. What could you possibly expect from him except something like this?
Skim by, say hi, make sure that everything's up to snuff. And we're going to need a drug screen.
Excuse me?
It's a formality in the business.
So do you want blood or urine?
I think urine would be fine. And we'll see you outside, okay? Have fun.
Thanks. Hello, dear. Hi, Mama.
Now, you see, she's exactly like me when I was her age.
What I'm doing, I feel like I'm
film
alone.
after film. I never stopped
Necessary.
working.
I know how
And
to
it was
do
very,
that.
very good therapy for me after my divorce and my miscarriages.
Times and bum times, I've seen them all in my dear.
Ever since I was about 7, I wanted to be you. Bart does you in his drag show.
I am still here.
How would you like to have Joan Crawford for a mother? Or Lana
please.
Turner?
These are the options. Are you sure I didn't sleep with you?
Sleep? Yeah.
I was with him Saturday night. 2 girls in one day. Yeah, that's just the ones we know about.
You said you loved me.
I admitted at the time.
Well, what is it, a viral love? Kind of a 24-hour thing?
Never let him see you ache. That's what Mr. Mayer used to say. Or was it ass? Never let him see your ass.
You know, you were a lot more fun when you were loaded.
Relax, they're blank.
I don't get your generation's humor half the time.
Remember my 17th birthday party when you lifted your skirt up in front of all the
I did
people,
not lift
including
my
that guy
skirt.
Michael,
It twirled up.
and you weren't wearing any underwear.
Well,
Meryl Streep, Shirley MacLaine, in a Mike Nichols film.
Oh, Lowell, I'm sorry.
Postcards from the Edge.
Help me. Oh.
This is an overall really good movie. One of the things that I really liked about this movie is how Carrie Fisher took her book about some of the trials and tribulations that she had to go through in her career with her mother and all these elements, and they actually made a pretty fun little comedy, a dramatic comedy out of it. And it definitely shows up here on screen. Meryl Streep does a very good job fitting into the role of this actress, Suzanne Vale, which is basically Carrie Fisher's personality from the book. And then you have Shirley MacLaine here playing her mother. You also have Dennis Quaid in here, who gives a good performance, as well as Annette Bening in one of her early roles. And you also have Gene Hackman in this, as well as Richard Dreyfuss. Rob Reiner's also in here, too. There's a very good cast here. The music overall is very well done. It's got Carly Simon music on here. And the song, I'm Checking Out, was actually nominated for an Academy Award that year. And, yeah, it's an overall really enjoyable movie. It's very funny. It's very good. The dramatic elements are not too over the top or crazy. They feel earnest. They feel very, very earnest. And I like the chemistry of MacLaine and Streep here as mother and daughter. They're very good in this movie. And the movie just has a good sense of humor to itself that makes it a very enjoyable comedy. If you like seeing some of Mike Nichols' best works, this is definitely one of his best movies, in my opinion. So, yeah, definitely see Postcards from the Edge if you haven't seen it already. So, with that said, let's get on to the next movie, and that is Jean-Claude Van Damme's next film after Kickboxer and Bloodsport. It's Death Warrant.
First, he demolished the supreme player in the most brutal sport in the world. Then, he crushed the competition in a contest nobody plays for kicks. Now, what's the problem? He faces a new challenge, only this time there are no rules. And nobody's playing games.
Detective Burke, we want to send you undercover into Harrison as a prisoner.
Van Damme is Burke.
You're not going to last too long. It's not a threat. It's a promise.
He's got the toughest job a cop can do.
Prisoners hate cops more than anything else. It's a hit list. You're a dead man.
His cover has been blown.
What are you doing in my prison?
It's too late.
You did it, sir.
Your number's next on the list.
And the odds are impossible.
Welcome to hell.
Van Damme, he loves a good fight. Death Warrant.
Of course, one of the most notable things about this movie is that David F. Goyer actually wrote this, and this was the first script he sold and produced commercially. And of course, that would lead him to bigger and better things after this. He would also work on stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the movie from '98, the Nick Fury movie, the Blade trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, The Invisible, The Unborn, Dark City, the Call of Duty series. I mean, this is one of his earliest film works, and for the most part, it's what you'd expect. It's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. It's Van Damme doing what Van Damme does best. And, it's stupid, but it does have... It's stupid story-wise. It's a very formulaic script. The villain's not that good. The plot is kind of all over the place. The director, Darren Sarafian, not a very good director. This would feel like more of a direct-to-video movie. But I'll give it credit, though, that it does have a good performance by Van Damme, and the action sequences overall are very good. These are very good action sequences featured in this film in particular. Like I said, it is what it is. If you're going into this movie expecting is an over-the-top action movie, you definitely get that, especially for a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. But other than that, though, it is fine for what it is. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie.
We're in a time of throwaway technology.
I'll give you 30, 40, 50, and then you can see it my way.
Only some of the stuff that gets thrown away isn't dead.
No? Merry Christmas, baby. I got something else you like.
What is it?
It's asleep.
Electronics presents its new model, the Mark 13. The Mark 13 is self-repairing, capable of recharging its storage batteries from just about any power grid, including the sun.
And when it wakes up, it'll become something entirely new.
I gotta see. It's important. Meet me in 1 hour.
A creature that combines the technology of a computer, the deceit of a human, and the killer instinct of a machine.
James, listen to me. This is serious.
Jill is in trouble. I didn't see anybody.
Get ready for an encounter with some seriously heavy metal. Hardware.
Yeah, a lot of people forget this was actually a top 10 movie at the box office when it first came out. It actually made money. And this is of course Hardware, the British sci-fi horror film from Richard Stanley, who you may know as the director of Color Outer Space with Nicolas Cage from a few years back. But many of you probably don't know that he was also attached to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau in the 90s, the movie that featured Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer, and it was supposed to be a very different movie than the one we've got, but it had a very troubled production history, and Stanley has made documentaries about, he didn't make a documentary, he was part of a documentary talking about what his Dr. Moreau would have been like. But we'll delve more into that when we get to that movie in a couple of years down the line. But in terms of this movie, I have not seen it before. It's a cult film. It has a following to it, but I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen it before, so I can't really comment on it. Got some notable names in here: Dylan McDermott, Stacey Travis. You also have appearances by Lemmy, Carl McCoy, Iggy Pop. So they got a pretty good cast here. The movie looks pretty good too, like this post-apocalyptic Mad Max meets Total Recall kind of movie here. So I mean, it could be good. It might be something I'll definitely check out one day, but I'm not really gonna watch it immediately. But definitely has a lot of promise to it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie.
In 1973, an entire world watched as a little girl and a holy exorcist battled and cast out the devil himself. But now...
I think Nancy has been repossessed.
And this is the only man who could possibly save her. Leslie Nielsen.
I couldn't hide my butt with both my hands.
Linda Blair.
God created man in his own image.
Then how do you explain beauty, Armin?
This is in America, the ultimate confrontation of good against evil.
Repossessed. Coming soon.
That movie, of course, is Repossessed, which was coming out around the time that The Exorcist 3 came out. And it was also the movie that kind of proved that if Leslie Nielsen isn't working with the Zucker brothers, chances are the spoof comedy that he's in is probably not going to be all that good, because, man, this is a disappointment of a movie, especially since you have the original girl that was possessed, Regan McNeil, Linda Blair from The Exorcist, in this movie. You would think that maybe you could have had something much better than what this is. This is a mess of a movie, man. And like I said, it's all because of the writing and the direction. Like, the Zucker brothers have a unique way of making a spoof movie that can still hold up, even when there's stuff in there that's very dated. You can still laugh about it years later. That's what makes the Naked Gun movie so special. That's what makes movies like the Airplane movie so special. The Abrams, who would later do Hot Shots, that's why those movies still hold up as well. This movie, not so much. It's a disappointment, too, because, again, you have Linda Blair here. You also have Ned Beatty. But you also have elements here where you can spoof many of the things in the time period. Like the televangelist scandals of the 1980s, the Tammy Faye Bakers and all that kind of stuff. And it's just not there. It's just dated comedy that just really doesn't work all that well. And it's very short, too. Even for a short movie that's about just under 90 minutes... it feels long and boring, man. It's just like, it's not a good comedy whatsoever. It's a disappointment, too. And it's, again, a very big disappointment, especially considering the talent on board here. But, that's sadly what you have to do, because, like I said, this was one of the first the movies that they were trying to copy the success of the Naked Gun movies with, and it just doesn't work, especially with Frank Drebin in your movie, Leslie Nielsen. It just didn't work. It was a mess of a movie all around, and it came and went, essentially. So, that's Repossessed for you. So, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is...
Oh, great ocean. A time of innocence. Oh, great. A state of grace. Terry Noonan never thought he'd come back to the old neighborhood. To the best friend he ever had. To the first girl he ever loved. To a shadowy world of violence, intimidation, and fear. Where brother threatens brother. Where love is darkened by betrayal. Where now he's forced to make a choice. Between betraying his friends and betraying himself.
You believe in angels or the saints, or there's such a thing as a state of grace, but it's got nothing to do with reality.
State of Grace, which is an overall really good movie that unfortunately got overshadowed by a classic movie the following week, and we'll talk more about that later on in the video, and then when we get to that one next week. But State of Grace is a great movie, man. If you haven't seen this movie, it's a really good, well-made movie. It's a neo-noir crime film written by Dennis McKintrey, a playwright, and it also features Sean Penn, Ed Harris, Gary Oldman, Robin Wright, John Turturro, the music of Ennio Morricone, Phil Giannano, who directed Gridiron Gang later on down the road, directed this movie, and it's a very good movie. It's a very good crime movie that, again, got overshadowed by a far superior movie the following week. It's a great movie. If you like Sean Penn at his best, this is definitely one of his best movies, a very underrated movie. definitely check this movie out if you can find it. State of Grace, really great film. Fortunately got overshadowed by a far superior movie, which kind of sucks, but anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is White Hunter Black Heart, the latest film from Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, White Hunter, Black Heart.
I don't care if this picture's shot in black and white or sepia tone, or we have to make the whole damn thing in animation. Pete and I are going to Africa. There are times in this life when you can't wonder whether it's the right or the wrong thing to do. Not for guys like you and me, kid. You just gotta pack up and go.
John Wilson, a brilliant, don't-give-a-damn type filmmaker who continually violated all the unwritten laws of the motion picture business, yet had the magic, almost divine ability to always land on his feet.
Paul, I hope I don't have to kill you before this picture's finished.
He's always been like that.
No, he's worse than ever. He's insane. In a well-ordered society, he'd be in a straitjacket right now.
If there's half as much love in this old gal as there is talk, I may be dead in the morning.
John, give it up. Something terrible is wrong. The man has the fever. It's just like any passion. It's irresponsible and it's destructive.
This is simply paradise here. In fact, I'm seriously thinking of staying here forever.
Clint Eastwood, White Hunter, Black Heart.
This is, of course, based on the stories by Peter Vitrell, who worked on The African Queen, and this is a thinly disguised account of his experiences working on The African Queen, which was one of the few movies back in the 1950s that was shot outside of the U.S. It was one of the first movies to be shot internationally, like in Africa. But this movie basically follows a similar story here, where you have John Wilson, the director of it, played by Clint Eastwood, and Peter Vitrell in this movie is played by Jeff Fahey, who would later become known as the Lawnmower Man. And this is a pretty good Clint Eastwood movie, honestly. It's one that doesn't really get a whole lot of credit, or doesn't really get talked about all that much, because Eastwood's legacy is just is stacked with so many good movies. But this is an overall really enjoyable movie. I had a good time watching this one. This is one of his movies where you could see him putting in this great performance. Him and Jeff Fahey. You also have George DeZundra, who was also in... now I can't remember. George DeZundra, who was also in Basic Instinct. He was also on Law & Order, Batman the Animated Series, among many other movies, TV shows. And it's an overall... It is a good movie. It's a movie that's very well made. Maybe not one of Eastwood's best movies, but definitely one of his more underrated movies, honestly. If you want to see the best of Clint Eastwood's movies, I would say definitely check out White Hunter Black Heart if you can. So, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Fools of Fortune.
It hasn't always been easy to be an Irishman in Ireland. We're Irish, Willie, and so are they. My father used to say these men are the best friends I have. I'd say the same myself.
A child never knows.
You must do anything you can to be of help to you.
Not now, even.
Of course they are. Who's it, Josie? I don't know, Willie. Honestly, I don't know.
The family can never imagine.
Sit down, Willie. For God's sake, sit down.
How suddenly their world can end. From the director of Cow and A Month in the Country.
The war may be over in Europe, but it certainly isn't over here, Willie.
That man caused trouble. He fought beside some of those black and tans.
Well, I'll employ whom I like, Mr. Ramsey.
Between the passing of a way of life.
By God, Evie, I'll say this. If there's a more beautiful woman in the world, I'll never meet her.
And a family's learning to survive.
Evie, for God's sake, I thought you forgot. I thought you even tried. Look at you. Just look at you.
The past is always there in the present.
I could think of my father or my sisters and not have to scratch my hands with my fingernails anymore.
Don't you lose it, Willie. The love you have. It's like a gift. Loving someone.
Samuel Miller, did you ever hear tell of Johnny Lacey?
I did.
Was it a good thing you heard?
Yeah.
It can be love and mercy that changes things. Not men with swords and guns.
Where has Willie gone, Mr. Lacey?
Willie's best left, girl.
From the best-selling novel by William Trevor.
I've waited all this time, Willie. I don't know what's left.
Comes a story of innocence lost
A family touched by tragedy and reunited in hope.
All I'm saying is, it's different now. No one of that originality.
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Ian Glenn, and Julie Christie in a film by Pat O'Connor, Fools of Fortune.
Fools of Fortune is based off of a story by William Trevor. It's basically a Protestant family caught in the conflict between the British Army and the IRA during the Irish War of Independence. You have Ian Glenn here, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Julie Christie, Catherine McFadden. Some notable names in here, but I don't know. The trailer just feels more like a parody than an actual movie. Like, this is supposed to be a movie that's taken very seriously, but did anything about that trailer really look like they were taking it seriously? Like, a lot of overacting in there, a lot of moments that feel melodramatic and just over the top, and just it looks like a bad movie. And the reviews for this movie do not sound too promising for it. It's never been available on DVD or Blu-ray. It's only been available on VHS and Laserdisc, so that should tell you right there that, yeah, this movie doesn't have that strong of a legacy to it. Even though this is one of Hans Zimmer's early score works as well. But, yeah, this movie looks way more hilarious than I think they were intending it to. This is supposed to be like a serious, roaring epic, and it doesn't even feel anything like that, unfortunately. So, haven't seen it though. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe what I'm reading is wrong, but I don't know. Fools of Fortune. So that wraps that up.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hey, Mom, what do you think?
You look like a gangster.
I know I...
By the time I grew up, there was $30 billion a year in cargo moving through Idlewild Airport. Believe me, we tried to steal every bit of it.
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
He's not Jewish.
For most of the guys, killing's got to be accepted.
Hey, Henry, here's an arm.
Very funny, guys.
Here's a leg.
There's a wing. What do you like, the leg or the wing?
It's you.
For us to live any other way was nuts. And we were treated like movie stars with muscle. We had it all just for the asking.
It's gonna be a good summer.
It was a glorious time.
In a world that's powered by violence, on the streets where the violent have power, a new generation carries on an old tradition.
And unfortunately, not too long ago, we lost Ray Liotta, and there's nothing really more to say about his performance in this movie. It's an incredible performance he gives in this film. It's one of the highlights of the film. This movie just overall is a friggin' masterpiece, man. 1990 had a lot of gangster movies, set in the past, movies that very much like this one, that this movie really defied the expectations of a lot of people had, because this was a year that we had a Godfather sequel, and this one trounced that one considerably as the best gangster movie of the time, and it just shows how Martin Scorsese never really lost his touch. There was a couple of times in the 80s where his streak kind of not really ended, but he didn't make as good of movies that he did in the past, like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull. Still make good movies, but not to those high levels. But this movie comes out, and it's a masterpiece in every sense of the word. The acting is great. Like I said, Ray Liotta is very good here. Joe Pesci is great in this. Lorraine Bracco is great. So is Robert De Niro, not Robert Downey Jr., Dennis Farina, Paul Sorvino, just some of the greatest actors who ever lived at the time worked on this movie, and it's just an amazing achievement. Just so many great things about this movie, from the cinematography, like the scene sequences in this movie. Just if you can't listen to "And Then He Kissed Me" without thinking about this, or the opening of Adventures in Babysitting. But when I think of that song, I think of this scene. I think of that scene where Ray Liotta is taking Lorraine Bracco through the kitchen, and the back of the kitchen in the restaurant and getting the front row seat and everything. It's just this one singular shot, and it's just so well done. It's just a phenomenal movie in every sense of the word. It never lets up. It never falls off. It's just a fantastic, well-made movie. Anytime it's on TV, it's one of those ones that you just have to watch over and over again. It gives you everything you could possibly ask for and then some. It's one of Scorsese's greatest movies. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's Goodfellas. Need I say more? So, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Gene Hackman and Ann Archer in Narrow Margin.
She made you, Michael. No, you don't understand. But don't be afraid. I would never harm you. Well, Michael, I lied. The woman was in the other room. She saw everything. Everything. Nobody knew about it. They still don't. You were witness to a murder. I'd like you to come back and testify.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think you realize the situation you're in.
I'll take my chances.
You get on the train, lock the door. Those two guys, they got automatic weapons. They've seen me. They might not have seen you. They might not know what you look like.
How do we stop him?
We don't. It's not going to take very long to find this compartment.
This is my life we're keeping with.
How much does a deputy district attorney make in a year? I don't like people like you. You know we're going to find her. It's just a matter of time. Do you really think you can get her off this train? Get who? These guys are professionals, and if they see you, they're going to kill you. Grab the handrail. Get on the roof. Gene Hackman. I have to make my move before they make theirs.
Ann Archer.
I'm scared still.
Sometimes the difference between life and death is a narrow margin.
So Narrow Margin is, of course, a remake of the 1952 film noir of the same name. And it has Gene Hackman and Ann Archer, directed by Peter Hyams, who had done 2010, the year we made Contact, Outland, Running Scared, The Presidio. He would later do stuff like Stay Tuned, Time Cop, Sudden Death, The Relic, End of Days. He's been a mixed bag director over the years, and this is a movie that's very much a mixed bag. The performances, I think, definitely carry it over. The concept of the train most of the action taking place on the train is very good, but it's a very formulaic script. It really is. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's a very formulaic script. You can kind of tell where it's going to go. You can tell where it's going to end up going in pretty much every aspect. It's a very predictable movie, and that's a shame because the performances do carry it over to a little bit to where I say it's not the worst movie ever, but it's better than I think it should have been, considering how lackluster the script was. So, I mean, yeah, overall, it's an okay movie. It's one I wouldn't rush out to see again anytime soon, but it's fine for what it is. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Leonard Nimoy's follow-up to 3 Men and a Baby. Gene Wilder in Funny About Love.
Duffy Bergman. He's a man's man. He's a ladies' man. He's a lucky man.
Could you please tell me who the Bulgarian bear wrestler is who made this?
I'm the Bulgarian bear wrestler.
This is delicious. If you don't love me, then just tell me you don't love me and I'll get out of the way.
Get out of the way! He's a man whose biological clock,
I want one of those,
is about to go off.
26 million couples a year have difficulty conceiving.
Oh, what's happening here?
It's an auditory monitor.
Oh, I thought maybe you were lonely.
All we need to do is lower their temperature. This should do the trick.
What's this little pocket for?
Ice.
Sometimes it takes more than a fertile imagination to go from here to paternity.
Come on. Worst thing that can happen. We'll have 2 hours of incredible, unreproductive sex. Work, work, work.
Gene Wilder, Funny About Love.
I should have said his comedic follow-up because he directed The Good Mother, which was a drama with Diane Keaton and Liam Neeson in it. But Funny About Love is definitely a major comedic step down from 3 Men and a Baby. It's very lackluster. In fact, Burt Reynolds pretty much kind of made a movie similar to this 10 years prior. I think it was called Paternity, but it's pretty much that same plot with, instead of Burt Reynolds, it's Gene Wilder. And Gene Wilder can be very funny, and you also have Christine Lottie, who's a great actress. But the comedy they're just giving in here just doesn't work at all. It's very sitcomish. Nothing about this feels like it's necessary for a big screen motion picture. And there's just nothing about it that really makes it stand out on its own. It's a very forgettable movie. It showed up on many people's Worst of the Year list in 1990, and you could really see why. Despite the fact that Wilder and Lottie are trying their best here, there's just nothing really funny here. They try to make... I think a movie like Knocked Up does a pretty good job of showing the pros and cons of being of pregnancy and all that. Like this movie just feels like everything that happens is going to be A-okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, all that kind of stuff. It's just like... That's not how pregnancy works. I mean, it's just like I've seen much better comedies about pregnancy that actually tackles those aspects, but this really doesn't work at all. This is a very bland movie that doesn't even feel like a real movie. It feels more like a sitcom than an actual movie. It makes no sense to do a movie like this, especially with a guy like Leonard Nimoy, who proved how good of a comedic director he could be with 3 Men and a Baby. Just a good director overall with what he did with with Star Trek 3 and 4. And this was part of his downfall. I mean, after this, he made another movie that wasn't received very well, Holy Matrimony, and then he never directed another movie after that. And it's just a shame that had to be. So, yeah. So that's Funny About Love. There ain't nothing really funny about it, personally. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is The Boyfriend School, a.k.a. Please Don't Tell Her It's Me. You'll see what I mean when you look at the trailer.
Hi. I'm Gus Kubitschek. I just met the girl of my dreams. But there's one little problem.
Gus is such a nice guy. A terrifically nice guy. But I'm sort of involved with someone already.
So my crazy sister decided to turn me into every woman's fantasy.
I can make Emily fall in love with you. What we're gonna need is instant devastation.
Let the transformation begin.
My name's Lorber Marunga.
What are you doing?
I thought you'd show me the scenic wonders hereabouts.
Oh no, I have to get back to work.
You seem to be searching for something. It's in the eyes.
I would suggest a pair of bikini briefs.
Are you gay?
No, I am not.
Great. Are you free of disease?
I've got an ingrown toenail, but Emily,
Don't talk. That's all I wanted to know.
I don't like lying to her.
Lizzie, I cannot do this anymore. It is over.
You are inches away from where you want to be.
And I hate that it's Lobo she's crazy about, not the real me.
She loves beard stubble and a pair of contact lenses. Ellen, please. Ellen.
I've got to tell her the truth. If she finds out for herself, I'm a dead man. But do me a favor. If you see her first, don't tell her it's me.
Hemdale Film Corporation presents Steve Guttenberg, Jamie Gertz, Kyle MacLachlan, and Shelley Long as Lizzie. Don't tell her it's me.
Yeah, when I saw this on Box Office Mojo, the title was actually The Boyfriend School because the script is based off of that book, but the trailers and everything else has it called Don't Tell Her It's Me. And it's just, this basically just goes back to to what I said about Funny About Love. It's just a sitcom premise blown up for the big screen. But this one I think was even worse. This is just like, wow, like asking Steve Guttenberg to put on that kind of an accent and try to be something different. It's just like, ugh, just no, whoa, you really screwed that up big time. It's just, man, this is a bad movie. This is a really bad movie. Like, I mean, wow, this was rough to get through. And even with the cast it has, Shelley Long, Jamie Gertz, Kyle MacLachlan, Matt Janamick, Beth Grant. I think it's Matt Janamick. I think that's what I meant to say. But You get the idea. Like, this is a premise that you've seen in all these different romantic comedies. It all ends up in the same way. It's going to end in a cliched ending. It's going to end with the two getting back together after the third act breakup, and it's just nothing enjoyable about this movie. At least Funny About Love was trying, but this doesn't feel like it's trying. Even that trailer, where were the good laughs in there? You're supposed to put the good laughs in the trailer, but it's just like, I didn't laugh once. It's just not a good movie. Just not a good movie. Just not a good movie whatsoever. So anyway, on to the next movie, and the next movie is The Tall Guy with Jeff Goldblum in it.
Funny and sexy. People magazine. More appealing than ever. New York Times. The best physical comic actor in the movies. LA Times. Jeff Goldblum is the tall guy. Dexter King has a few problems. His career is on the skids.
If you ever do anything funny in my show again, you elongated droplet of dung, you're out.
His roommate's a nymphomaniac. His love life is a mess. And he's scared to death of needles.
They said the real experts do it without even looking.
Then Dexter meets Kate.
Well, the thing is, I'm not the sort of girl who would be in that. I think it's much better to go to bed with the person on the first date to get it out of the way.
Tall Guy, a romantic comedy that stands out from the crowd.
You can see this movie also has Emma Thompson, Rowan Atkinson. The director of this is Mel Smith, who would later go on to direct Radioland Murders and also the Bean movie. Richard Curtis, who would later write several classic movies such as Bridget Jones's Diary, Notting Hill, Love Actually. So there's a very good, talented group of people here, and the movie is pretty fun itself. It's very funny. It is kind of formulaic, but it has enough good performances all around to make it stand out on its own, where you can really get into the laughs in the movie, and it is very funny. It's very funny. It is risque at times. Like you saw, I had to cut part of that because I thought there was actually a trailer for that a long time ago. I remember seeing for this where they actually did show her boobs, Emma Thompson's boobs, and I thought they were about to show that off, so that's why I cut that off. But it just wasn't there. But you get the idea. This movie, it earns the R rating here, and it's a fun time. It's a really fun movie. It's Jeff Goldblum doing what Jeff Goldblum does best, and that's good. That's kind of the fun thing about Jeff Goldblum. He can be very funny doing his normal shtick, and while it's not all over this movie, he is very likable in here. Most of the people in this are very likable. It's an overall really enjoyable movie. Kind of an underrated movie. If you haven't seen The Tall Guy, if you like this type of comedy from Richard Curtis, this is definitely going to work for you. It's definitely a very well-made film. I'd say definitely check it out if you can. And we'll wrap it up with maybe the second best movie that came out this week, and that is the Coen Brothers' Miller's Crossing.
From the makers of Blood Simple and Raising Arizona, a world where nothing is what it seems to be. Leo, is he still the boss?
The day I back down from a fight, Casper's welcome to the rackets, this town, and my place at the table.
Casper, can he muscle in?
I'm sick of taking a scrap from you, Leo. And I'm sick of the high hat.
Tom, would he sell out a friend?
You shouldn't be confronting Jenny Casper. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
I can still trade body blows with any man in this town. Except you, Tom.
And Verna.
Verna, is she Leo's girl?
What did you tell Leo?
I told him you were a tramp and he should dump you.
I want everybody to be friends. You, me, Leo, the Danes.
You know who I am?
The Dane. Has he got it figured?
You dumping Leo for the guy who put a bullet in your brother?
Bernie, will he turn the tables?
Don't smart me. I want to watch you squirm. I want to see you sweat a little. All you gotta do to show you're a friend is give me Bernie burn bum. Tommy, you can't do this. You don't bump guys. It's not right, Tom. I can't die.
Two of us have faced worse odds. Never without reason.
I thought you said you didn't care about Leo.
I said we were through. It's not the same thing.
I'm talking about friendship. I'm talking about character. I'm talking about ethics.
Albert Finney, Gabriel Byrne, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro.
I can't die. Out here in the woods. Like a dumb animal. I can't die.
He's still alive.
You expect me to believe you? See you all over town. Alive and no heart.
No one is what they seem to be.
Up is down. Black is white.
At Miller's Crossing.
So you have Goodfellas, which is a fantastic crime film of its own kind, and then you have Miller's Crossing here, which is just as good. Maybe not better than Goodfellas, but it's just as good. I mean, this is a fantastic crime film, written and directed by the Coen brothers. You have Gabriel Byrne, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, Albert Finney. Just this great cast all around. Some great moments all throughout this movie. Great cinematography by Barry Sonnenfeld. Just memorable scenes that still hold up to this very day. This is a great movie. It's one that not a lot of people talk about when they talk about the Coen brothers' great movies, because they had just done Raising Arizona and Blood Simple before this, and then they would have this great decade of great movies, especially in the latter half of the decade. But this is a fantastic movie all around. I mean, John Turturro's performance in this movie is great. It's a great performance that it's over-dramatic, but it's not over-dramatic where it feels like he's going completely over the top just to win an Oscar. It's not an Oscar-bait performance. He's generally giving it his all in this movie, and it shows in that scene in the trailer, and it also shows in that scene in the movie where he's out there begging for his life, and he's just crying out to be alive and not get killed. And it's a great movie. It's a fantastic film. I don't think I need to say anything more about this one. If you have not seen Miller's Crossing, you need to go see it. If you like Coen brother movies, you're going to love this one a lot. Miller's Crossing, fantastic movie. Need I say more?
Carter Hayes has come to San Francisco. He will search for the perfect apartment. He will find the perfect landlords. And now, the game begins.
I'm your new tenant. I'm Carter Hayes.
Melanie Griffith, Matthew Modine, and Michael Keaton.
Mr. Hayes? Mr. Hayes?
Pacific Heights.
And really, you could pretty much see where this movie went wrong. I mean, give Michael Keaton credit. He really is the best thing about this movie. Although I will say both Matthew Modine and Melanie Griffith are very good in this. I will say also, though, that the movie does start off not like the typical thriller of this kind. Like, you don't expect it. Like, you expect this to be just a pretty generic psychological thriller, but it really doesn't start off that way. It doesn't start off as badly as you might think, but once we get halfway through, and then we start to realize, okay, they're going to go through these same tropes that we've seen over and over and over again. It just falls apart, and it's unfortunate too, considering the talent that's on here, the director John Schlesinger, and just this cast that they have. Not just Griffith, Modine, and Keaton, but you also have Mako, you have Laurie Metcalf, you have Tippi Hedren in this movie from The Birds, Dorian Hayward. Just this incredible, just a really pretty much a good cast in this. Beverly D'Angelo from the Vacation movies has a cameo in here. It's just unfortunate that the movie just goes through the typical by-the-numbers thriller storyline that it goes through. Like you said, is like the guilty person is going to get the protection, and the innocent people are the ones that are seen as the villains at first, and then it goes down that path you see all the time in these movies. There really is nothing there, and it doesn't really work as well as the defective thrillers I think they wanted it to. There's so much potential here where they could have had something really good, but it just really doesn't really work out in the end. It's a very forgettable movie that had so much potential to it with the cast they had and the decent start that they had, but then unfortunately it just craters into predictable generic territory, and it's just not a good movie. It's just unfortunate because of everything that it had going for it, and it just couldn't stick the landing. Pacific Heights came and went. Sadly, it didn't live up to the expectations that it had potentially. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get on to the next movie, and that is Dark Angel. And wait until you see this trailer, because when I saw this for the first time, I was like, whoa.
Houston, Texas. It's Christmas. Someone special is coming to town. And it's not Santa Claus. Jack Kane, a cop who does things his own way.
What are you doing? Shortcut.
He's sensitive, understanding, and kind to strangers.
Merry Christmas.
But all that's about to end.
Three well-armed men have their throats cut before they can even draw their weapons. Who could possibly move that fast?
Aliens.
Hey, what? Are you crazy? It's true.
You need a psychiatrist, Jack.
Your psycho stole a lot of heroin to kill people.
What are you gonna do? Tell them we're fighting drug dealers from outer space? Huh? Look out! Human body carries a small electrical charge, right? You tune the disc to the charge and then...
What the hell is going on here? As far as you're concerned, this case is closed. It's not our problem anymore. I've had a bad day.
What the hell was that? First off, the title of this movie is actually not the original the actual title for this. The title for this is actually I Come in Peace. This is actually the alternate title, even though this is technically the original title. The film was actually going to be released with that title, but the studio, Triumph Releasing, actually changed it to I Come in Peace because there were two other movies called The Dark Angel from 1925 and 1935, but that's the sanest thing compared to what I've seen from this trailer. It's like, what the heck was that? It's just like, it starts off as a routine cop thriller. It suddenly turns into Hellraiser not Hellraiser, Phantasm, because there are scenes that look like the Phantasm Ball, wherever it's killing people. You have this, actually, this is kind of like Hellraiser, because the bad guy, the antagonist of the movie sounds like Pinhead at times with his deep voice. It's a comedy also, too, and Brian Benben's also in it, who's mostly known as a comedian. It's just, this movie's just all over the place. I'm thinking, all I can think is, what the heck were they trying to sell here? And, shockingly, it made money, despite the fact that that trailer was all over the place. Like, it doesn't really feel like the movie has an idea of what they're trying to sell it as. But like I said, I guess the strategy worked because that bizarre strategy of theirs worked because the movie actually did turn in a profit and was actually a decent-sized hit. And also of note, this is another one of the early works by David Coeb. We've already looked at a couple of early movies from him, including Bad Influence and Why Him, or Why Me. But, yeah, I haven't seen this movie, but that trailer really did not make me want to see it. I take that back. I only want to see it just to know what is this actual movie, because it's like, I couldn't really tell what they were trying to sell here with this trailer. But, I guess the movie had enough of a cult following. I mean, I guess it's got a big release, it got a Blu-ray release by Screen Factory, and they don't really usually do that for movies that didn't really... Well, I take that back, because they do that, but... You see, this trailer has really confused me, because I have no idea what the heck happened. I have no idea what the heck the movie is trying to sell me to, but, Anyway, I'm gonna shut up now. That's Dark Angel, or I Come in Peace, or whatever the hell this is. Let's get to a much simpler movie, the sequel to The Last Picture Show, which is Texasville.
High school sweethearts, Dwayne Jackson and J.C. Farrow, going to the picture show and going all the way.
Oh, quit prison. I don't think you did it right anyway.
20 years after the Academy Award-winning Last Picture Show, it's a whole new ballgame. Dwayne's a millionaire oil man. Carla, his beautiful wife. And guess who just came back to town?
Don't I know you from somewhere?
Jeff Bridges.
JC, I'm Dwayne Jackson. We went together in high school for a while.
Sybil Shepherd.
Did I have you madly in love?
Madly?
Cloris Leachman.
You're scared you'll fall in love with her again, aren't you?
I don't know why we're even talking about this.
Annie Potts.
Just because I go looking for trouble doesn't mean I want any husband but you.
William McNamara.
Who were you sleeping with that Billy Ann found out about?
Mrs. Nolan and Mrs. Marlowe.
Oh!
Timothy Bottoms.
I think we're all crazy now.
I don't think I'm crazy. I admit just about everybody else is.
And Randy Quaid.
My wife's about to bear you a grandchild.
I might be pregnant.
Your old girlfriend's about to bear me a child.
I think I'm pregnant.
And unless I'm very lucky, I'm headed for prison.
Somebody must be making a fortune off fertility drugs in this county.
Texasville.
Women have a heartless side to them, don't they?
This whole town is heartless.
Cheer up, honey pie. It's a beautiful day, and you're riding around with the two best-looking women in Texas.
I think everybody in the whole county is waiting till now to go crazy.
Texasville. It's not a place. It's a state of mind.
It's not too smart to get too many women in love with you at the same time.
Yeah, it seemed like 1990 was the year for movies that came out in the 70s to get sequels years after the original. We of course looked at The Two Jakes, which was the sequel to Chinatown, which didn't play very well. Well, we still have The Godfather Part 3 down the road as we get into the end of the year, and we also have Rocky 5, which is still coming up in about a couple months from now. But Texasville is probably the most interesting one besides Godfather 3, because of the fact that it's a sequel coming almost 20 years after the original Last Picture Show. Unlike the Last Picture Show, which was filmed in black and white, this is in color, and both films are directed by Peter Bogdanovich. Most of the cast from that movie is back in this movie. This actually takes place in 1984, which is supposed to be 33 years after the events of the Last Picture Show. And probably the surprise to everybody else that this is actually kind of a decent movie. It's a movie that didn't make a lot of money at the box office. They only got mixed reviews. It seemed like it was being dumped because nobody really believed in the project, but if you go back and really look at this movie, it's nowhere near as good as Last Picture Show, but I think it's a worthy sequel. You can still feel that chemistry that Jeff Bridges and Sybil Shepherd have in this movie, and you still have Cloris Leachman, Randy Quaid, Tim Bottoms. You have the additions of people like Annie Potts is in this, William McNamara. Just a really good cast all around. And it feels like a legitimate sequel, a sequel that They really wanted to continue the story on. They had some good ideas of what they wanted to do. And sure enough, the movie actually works out for them. This is a movie that I don't think gets the credit that it properly deserves. I think it's a well-made movie. I think it's a movie that people should go to see, especially if you like the original Last Picture Show. I think you'll definitely get more out of this movie than you would expect from it. Yeah, Texasville. If you haven't seen it, I'd say definitely check it out. It's a very underrated movie. Definitely to say that. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie.
Frank White is a free man.
How come you never came to see me? Who wanted to see you in a cage, man?
He served his time.
What can we expect from the reformed Frank White?
I want to be mayor.
He paid his debt.
Go someplace where you can stay out of trouble.
But some things don't change.
From here on, nothing goes down unless I'm involved. No blackjack, no dope deals, no nothing. You're waiting years for this.
I know what you're up to, White. Forget it. I'm gonna make you any friends disappear long before that.
Are you arresting me?
Frank's Park Avenue attorney can get him out in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later!
I feel no remorse. I got a $250,000 contract on anyone involved in this case.
The cops tried to stop him their way.
I'm not your problem. I'm just a businessman.
Now they'll have to do it his way.
There's only one way to get Frank.
Christopher Walken, King of New York.
You expected to get away with killing all these people?
I never killed anybody that didn't deserve it.
Yet another gangster movie. Apparently September of 1990 was the month of gangster movies because we had this, we had State of Grace, we had, of course, Goodfellas, Miller's Crossing, King of New York. This is the movie we're talking about. Really good cast. Christopher Walken, Lawrence Fishburne, David Caruso, Wesley Snipes, Giancarlo Esposito. Abel Ferrara directed this, who would later go on to direct Bad Lieutenant, which I think is a much better film. But King of New York is a pretty good movie. It's a really good movie. It's a very unique, stylistic gangster film, very similar to State of Grace in a way. There were a lot of good, like I said, there were a lot of good gangster movies that came out of this time, but most of them got largely overlooked by Goodfellas, and even something like Miller's Crossing, which only had a small appearance, it's like a small opening, but would have this cult following later down the road. But yeah, this is a very underrated movie. It does very similar things to most gangster movies, but it works solely because the cast is really going to the nth level to present a movie that's much better than it has any right to be. I think Christopher Walken gives one of his best performances in this. I think Lawrence Fishburne gives a performance that really shows his acting abilities growing right in front of our eyes. Like I said, it's a fantastic movie. It's a very underrated film. Definitely check out King of New York if you haven't seen it already. I definitely say definitely check it out.